Welcome back to Weekend AM. Known as the final resting place of Michael Collins and Daniel O'Connell, a trip to Glasnevin Cemetery resembles a trip through Irish history. I recently visited the cemetery and museum.
Glasnevin is an incredibly diverse place, which you'll find out today. It's Ireland's largest cemetery. We've 1.5 million people buried here altogether, and was founded in 1832. So from that time to the present day, there's an incredible mix of characters buried here, amazing historical stories, and also just as a location, it's a place that is incredibly interesting. People really, I suppose, are starting to get a new sense of what Glasnevin is about.
And of course, you're helping that along with the addition of the museum and the coffee shop, which we'll chat about later. But first of all, give us an idea just how large Glasnevin Cemetery is. How big are we talking?
Well, it's over 120 acres in size altogether, and we also border onto the Botanic Gardens as well. So outside of the Phoenix Park, it's the largest open space in Dublin, which a lot of people don't realise. And it was originally founded as a garden cemetery based on Père Lachaise in Paris. And from the time of its foundation, it was steeped in importance politically. It was founded by Daniel O'Connell. And from that time, we've had an incredible range of political figures, well-known figures buried here in the cemetery.
Conor, give us an idea of names that we've recognised who are buried here.
Well, there's the well-known political characters like Daniel O'Connell himself. We've also people like Eamon de Valera, Countess Markievicz, Charles Stewart Parnell, Michael Collins, but also as well-known literary figures like Brendan Behan. We also have Luke Kelly as well of the Dubliners, and we have people like Liam Whelan, who was tragically killed in the Munich air disaster, a player with Manchester United.
One of the Busby babes, of course. And in terms of looking after these graves, who I suppose would be deemed of having historical importance, that is also part and parcel of the trust here at Glasnevin.
Yeah, it's been a huge programme that we've had over the past 10 years plus, where we've embarked on a restoration programme to try and bring Glasnevin back to its former glory, and it's really, I suppose, unrecognisable even to what it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Which would be the most visited grave?
Without doubt, that's the grave of Michael Collins, and we get thousands of people every year who come here to place flowers on his grave. There's never a day where there isn't flowers on his grave, and there's lots of reasons for that. Obviously, the Hollywood movie doesn't do you any harm, but he's an incredibly important figure historically, obviously, for Ireland, and there's a lot of questions, I suppose, that surround what might have been or what could have been because of his untimely death in 1922 during the Civil War.
You mentioned earlier on, Conor, Daniel O'Connell was the founder of Glasnevin Cemetery, and so this round tower is a fitting tribute to the man. What was his vision?
Well, it's a very interesting story behind the foundation of Glasnevin Cemetery and Daniel O'Connell's role in it. He founded it as a non-denominational cemetery, and this was in the background to the penal laws. So when he died in 1847, he was brought back here to Glasnevin, and they built this incredible monument to him.
We'll go and have a look now at his grave. Conor, you've brought me down into Daniel O'Connell's crypt. I've never been here before. It is spectacular. What a place to be buried.
It's remarkable, and I suppose it gives you a sense of the esteem in which people held him and what they thought of him. And he was a remarkable political figure and did an amazing amount in his own life. I suppose if he was around today, we'd consider him a human rights activist, not just for people in Ireland, but around the world. And he was famous internationally. And when he died in 1847, he actually died in Italy. He died in Genoa. And he had his famous last words, which are on this back wall here, which are "My body to Ireland, my heart to Rome, and my soul to heaven." And they literally took him on his word with that. They took out his heart and they placed that in a silver casket and sent that to the Irish College in Rome. And then they returned his body back here to Glasnevin, the cemetery he had helped found. And this cemetery was part of his activities to try and gain greater rights for Catholics, and the right of burial, a very basic right as we consider it today, and to have whatever service you wish was something which he campaigned for.
It goes without saying that Daniel O'Connell's crypt is seriously impressive, but actually, Conor, what strikes me walking through Glasnevin Cemetery, and indeed any cemetery really, is the variety of headstones that you can see here.
Yeah, there's an incredible range of them, and for a lot of people, particularly during the Victorian era, they're a real status symbol, and there's some incredible monuments within the cemetery, and that's something I always say to people, is that particularly on a day like this, people often keep their heads down and keep walking in a cemetery, but really it's an outdoor art gallery. There's an incredible range of sculptors who worked here, an incredible range of monuments which are very impressive in their own right, but often have a hidden meaning or symbolism. So it depends on the monument itself, but very often if there's a large monument there, there's usually somebody of note underneath it.
Now, here at Glasnevin Cemetery, you've brought it into the 21st century with the inclusion of an exhibition space, a museum and a coffee shop. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's quite unusual, I suppose, for any cemetery, but really I suppose what's happened is that the cemetery has gone full circle. It's gone back to its original vision as a garden cemetery, a place where people can come, they can walk, they can come to the museum, they can go out on a tour to find out more about the history of the cemetery, or they can go in and have a coffee. And I suppose some people would find that maybe a little bit unusual, but when people actually come here and they experience what the place is about, I think they get a real understanding of just how special Glasnevin is.